There is nothing sweeter than the emptiness of life. That no thing, like any vacuum, is always endlessly full. It's not an absence or a lack. Being is nothing and everything. The separate self disintegrates and is gone for good, and there's just life, there's just aliveness that is impersonal. The individual exists in a dream world rather than in reality, which is of course both real and unreal. It's just tiny particles or photons, whatever. You know, this rug is the same stuff as this leg at bottom. It's everything and nothing. It's being. And the individual likes to deny things or repress things or pretend in order to survive. One can only be awestruck at the creativity with which the individual allows its mechanisms and projections to survive. Life is essentially magnetic, and so the individual, through its filters, its past experiences, its history, its projection of all of that out, creates the film, the movie of me. And it's endlessly convincing. Just like when you go into the cinema and you're enthralled. Me is enthralled by its projection of reality. Boundless freedom doesn't distinguish in that way or own the story which appears. It doesn't take ownership. It simply allows it to be as it is. Action arises or doesn't. What doesn't happen in boundless freedom, but what happens in most enlightenment teaching or spiritual teaching or New Age teaching, even if it's subtle, is a denial of certain aspects of reality and a valuing of other aspects of reality. This doesn't happen in unconditional love. So what's happened for a very, very long time in established religions and also on the spiritual scene is that there is a teaching of becoming someone who deserves. And so much energy can be tied up in that. Becoming someone who deserves rather than simply a human being. A dog doesn't deserve its bone, it just enjoys it. A dog doesn't try to make the bone happen or hope for it to happen. It just endlessly celebrates when it does happen and takes action accordingly. It hides the bone so that no one else can get it. It's simple, it's honest, it's clear. It's dogginess for no reason. And human beings on the whole are much more complicated than that. And some of that is because life is unbearable to the seeker. to the individual. Life in its rawness is unbearable. No, I can't live this, therefore I must blame somebody. No, this isn't anything to do with me. Blood, sweat and tears can't be in my life. Well, who says? I've got to be happy. Who says? Life doesn't say it. Life endlessly sings its song of being. Death can't happen. Who says? Illness can't happen. Who says? Life doesn't say that. Religion and spiritual or non-dual teaching on the whole is saying, do this and everything will be okay. Say your prayers, you'll go to heaven and it'll all be over, this suffering. Of course you can't have lust. Hide it, repress it, deny it. Of course your desires are wrong. Hide them or get rid of them, diminish them. And this message basically throws all of that out and says it's all welcome. It's all welcome, and nobody is doing anything to you. Nothing ever happened. And worst of all, there is nobody. There's just energy. There's just life playing the instrument of a body, of a being. Everything is futile and without meaning and without purpose. The individual's efforts will achieve nothing except a momentary sense of satisfaction, perhaps, and that's what's arising in that moment for nobody. It's just endlessly turning. The wheel is turning. The individual lives on a hamster wheel. Scurry, scurry, scurry. It's funny and also devastating. It's hilarious and tragic. I mean, there is an amazing play going on in the appearance, which is a kind of disintegration of religious authority, which is neither good nor bad. And this is the age of the individual, actually, isn't it? It's where all of that repressed, apparent free will and choice is allowed to emerge and do its thing. It's the religion of the individual. Of course I should be allowed to do this. But, I mean, authority is breaking down everywhere, governmental authority, etc. And yet, in a way, it's not. In a way, it's more repressive. It's this endless polarity, isn't it? The more free the populace is, the more restrictive the corporations and governments become. So there's always this dark and light playing. And that's been denied by the patriarchal paradigms in religious and spiritual systems. And maybe there is an emergence of a more feminine paradigm in which the blood, sweat and tears is more welcome than it was. But the problem is when that becomes endlessly personal. I see this in other aspects of my work, that there can be an over-identification with the story, an over-identification with the process, and an unwillingness to hear the reality. It is a made-up story. That you are doing to yourself. There's nothing you're not doing to yourself.